I'm Morgan Foster, 28 years old, working as an accountant with a modest income that never seemed to impress my status-conscious family. For the past 2 years, I've been living in my mother's house, carefully saving every penny for my first real estate purchase while watching my younger sister, Vanessa, bask in the family spotlight with her glamorous influencer lifestyle. When I stumbled upon an abandoned Victorian-era house selling for only $900 at a tax auction, I felt an instant, unexplainable connection, like this forgotten place was calling out to me. But before I reveal how my family reacted to my decision, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you're ready for a story about finding worth in what others discard. Growing up in our middle-class suburban neighborhood, appearances were everything in the Foster household. My mother, Elaine, built her career as a realtor specializing in luxury properties. Though we never truly fit into the wealthy circles she aspired to join, she poured herself into maintaining a flawless image: immaculate home, fashionable clothes, carefully curated accomplishments. While I inherited my father's practical nature and quiet disposition, Vanessa, 3 years younger than me, was the perfect reflection of my mother's ambitions. Beautiful, charming, and innately skilled at turning social connections into opportunities. When Instagram and TikTok took off during Vanessa's high school years, my mother instantly saw the potential and poured money into equipment, photographers, and even minor cosmetic tweaks to help launch Vanessa's influencer career. In contrast, my choice to major in accounting was met with thinly veiled disappointment. "Playing it safe as usual," Mother remarked when I got my college acceptance letter, an achievement overshadowed just weeks later by Vanessa's first sponsored post deal. My father, though quietly supportive, rarely contradicted my mother's vision for our family. When he died of a sudden heart attack 3 years ago, it left a void that only amplified the dynamics at home. The modest life insurance and savings he left behind mostly went under Mother's control, meant, she said, for the family's advancement. Increasingly, that seemed to mean supporting Vanessa's dreams. After a painful breakup with my college boyfriend and a job relocation, I temporarily moved back into my childhood bedroom. It was supposed to be a 6-month arrangement to save money, but 2 years later, I was still there, having managed to save just over $40,000 through disciplined budgeting, brown bag lunches, and my 10-year-old Honda. Each milestone, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, kept me going, even through family dinners where my work at the accounting firm was a side note to Vanessa's latest collaboration or follower milestone. When Vanessa announced her plan to open a luxury wellness retreat in Sedona, Mother's excitement was electric. "This is exactly the kind of venture that will take you to the next level," she beamed, showing off the glossy mock-ups Vanessa had commissioned. I noticed the steep startup costs in the business plan, but stayed quiet as Mother hinted that family supports family when someone has such a promising vision. It was clear. My carefully saved money was now seen as Vanessa's next big opportunity. That night, I excused myself early, claiming work deadlines. In the hallway mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me, someone who had grown used to feeling invisible in her own home. Something had to change. My interest in real estate had started as an escape from the constant tension. Each night, I'd browse listings, crunching numbers on mortgage payments and renovation budgets, just a distraction at first, but it grew into real research. I learned about property values, inspections, and investment potential. One especially frustrating Tuesday, after another dinner dominated by Vanessa's retreat plans, I expanded my search to include foreclosures and auctions, more out of curiosity than expectation. That's when I saw it. A crumbling Victorian-era house listed for an upcoming tax auction, with a starting bid of just $900. There was only one photo: peeling paint, tangled vines, a porch on the verge of collapse. Most people would have scrolled right past it, but something in me clicked. I had to know more. The house was in a historic district, just 30 minutes from my job, abandoned after the elderly owner died without heirs, and property taxes went unpaid for 3 years. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in my career and drove out to see the property in person. What I found was both worse and better than the online photo suggested. The yard was a small jungle, with weeds stretching up to the first-floor windows and several young saplings growing dangerously, close to the foundation. The slate roof had visible gaps. The paint was so worn it showed hints of past color schemes, and the wraparound porch sagged ominously. Yet beyond these obvious flaws, I could see the bones of something magnificent. Intricate gingerbread trim still clung to the eaves. Original stained glass transoms glimmered above solid wood doors, and the graceful proportions of the architecture hinted at a bygone elegance. I didn't enter the house that day. I couldn't, legally. But I took dozens of photos and spent my lunch hour at the county records office, digging into its history. The house had been built in 1893 by a local merchant who made his fortune in textiles. It remained in his family for nearly a century, until the last descendant, an elderly woman named Margaret Winters, passed away without children. Intrigued, I reached out to my college friend Tyler, now a contractor specializing in historic renovations. When I texted him the photos, he called me right away. "The structure looks salvageable," he said, curiosity in his voice. "These old Victorians were built to last. If the foundation is solid and there's no major water damage, it could be an amazing project." 2 days later, Tyler joined me for an official interior inspection arranged through the auction company. Inside, it was a dusty time capsule. Original hardwood floors, ornate ceiling medallions, a sweeping staircase with hand-carved balusters, and even some period light fixtures. Of course, it needed serious work. The kitchen and bathrooms were hopelessly outdated. The electrical system would have to be completely redone, and water stains on several ceilings showed evidence of roof leaks. But after 3 hours of careful examination, Tyler gave his professional verdict. Structurally, it's remarkably sound. You're looking at roughly $35,000 for essential renovations: roof, electrical, plumbing, 1 functional bathroom, and a basic kitchen. If you're willing to tackle the cosmetic stuff yourself and live through the construction, you could make this place amazing on your budget. That night, I sat down and created a detailed spreadsheet. $900 for the purchase, about $35,000 for critical renovations, leaving just a small buffer for unexpected expenses. It would nearly wipe out my savings, but I'd own a home outright, no mortgage. As I compared historical photos from the county archives to my snapshots of its current state, I couldn't help but see myself in the house, overlooked, underestimated, by those who couldn't see beyond the flaws. The auction was scheduled for the following week, and as I registered as a bidder, I felt the first genuine excitement I'd had in years. 3 days before the auction, Mother announced a special family dinner, mentioning that Aunt Patricia, Uncle Richard, and my cousins would be joining us. "Vanessa has a comprehensive presentation about her retreat," she told me while making a hair appointment. "Wear something appropriate. Patricia always notices these things." I picked out a conservative blue dress from my work wardrobe. When I arrived, the dining room had been transformed. Mother's best china, fresh flowers, and printed materials, at each place setting. Vanessa, stunning in a cream designer outfit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, connected her laptop to the TV for her presentation. Dinner conversation was devoted entirely to Vanessa's growing influence and connections until Mother tapped her glass for attention. "As you all know, we're gathered to discuss an exciting opportunity," she began, nodding to Vanessa. For the next 20 minutes, Vanessa delivered a polished presentation about her wellness retreat, exclusive experiences, authentic spiritual elements, and premium pricing. She revealed that startup costs were $50,000, with projected returns after 18 months. "We've secured partial funding through my partnership arrangements," Vanessa explained. "But we need additional family investment to maintain controlling interest." Uncle Richard was the first to speak up, offering $5,000. Aunt Patricia followed with the same. Mother beamed, proudly announcing her own $10,000 contribution. Then, all eyes turned to me. "Well, Morgan?" Mother prompted, her voice sweet but expectant. "This is exactly the sort of family opportunity you've been saving for." For a moment, I was speechless. But then, surprisingly steady, I cleared my throat. "Actually, I've been saving for my own investment opportunity. I'm buying a house." My announcement was met with polite curiosity, until I showed them the photos on my phone. Aunt Patricia's expression shifted from interest to horror, and Uncle Richard awkwardly passed the phone back without comment. Mother let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Surely you're joking. That's not a house. It's a demolition project," she said. "It needs work," I acknowledged, "but the structure is sound." Mother turned to the relatives, shaking her head. "Morgan's always had unusual tastes. But this is extreme even for her." "Darling, that's not a sensible investment. It's $900 at auction plus renovation costs." I tried to explain, outlining Tyler's professional assessment as calmly as I could. But Vanessa cut in, her tone dripping with incredulity. "900? That's literally the cost of one night at the retreat," she scoffed. "If this place had any real value, it wouldn't sell for so little." "Many people can't see past cosmetic issues," I responded, my voice taking on a subtle edge. "But I've done my research." Mother's expression hardened. "Research or not, your sister's business is a much more appropriate use of your savings," she said sharply. "You've always been so practical. For once, couldn't you support something visionary?" The conversation quickly escalated. "I've already registered for the auction," I told them, my hands tightening around my phone. "You would waste your entire savings on this junk house, rather than invest in your sister's future?" Mother's voice rose with each word. "I'm not wasting anything," I shot back, my composure slipping. "I'm investing in my own future. And I've already decided." Mother's face flushed with anger. "This is unbelievably selfish," she snapped. "Your sister has worked so hard to create real opportunities while you've spent your life playing it safe. The one time your family needs your support, you choose this." She waved dismissively at my phone. Aunt Patricia interjected with forced concern. "Morgan dear, have you been feeling well lately? These impulsive decisions can sometimes be a sign of stress or even depression." "I'm not being impulsive," I countered, my hands trembling under the table. "I've spent weeks researching this property and consulting with a professional contractor." "Weeks?" Vanessa's eyebrows arched dramatically. "You've been planning this for weeks, while I've been including family investment in my business model?" The guilt trip was expertly delivered, painting me as the villain, though no one had even bothered to ask if I wanted to invest in her project. It had simply been assumed that my savings were there for the taking. Dinner ended with a strained, uncomfortable silence. Mother pulled me into the kitchen under the pretense of helping with dessert. "You will not embarrass this family with this ridiculous project," she hissed in a low, intense voice. "You will call tomorrow and withdraw from that auction, and you will contribute to Vanessa's retreat like everyone else in this family who matters." For the first time in my adult life, I looked my mother in the eyes and said simply, "No." The stunned silence that followed was oddly empowering. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when Mother entered my bedroom without knocking. Her face was calm, but her eyes were icy. "I've been thinking about your announcement last night," she began, sitting uninvited on the edge of my bed. "And I've decided to give you a choice." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her silk robe, her voice measured. "Either you reconsider this foolish house purchase and contribute to your sister's business like a proper family member, or you can move out immediately." The ultimatum hung in the air. "I'm not changing my mind about the house," I said, continuing to apply mascara, as though this conversation wasn't about to upend my life. "Then you have 1 week to find other accommodations," she stated flatly. "I won't have someone living under my roof who so blatantly disrespects family priorities." She paused for dramatic effect, then delivered the blow she had clearly rehearsed. If you want to live like junk, then go live in your junk house. But don't expect to be welcomed back when your little project inevitably fails. She moved to the door, pausing. You've embarrassed this family enough already. Patricia texted me last night, saying she's genuinely concerned about your mental state. After she left, I sat motionless at my vanity, mascara wand suspended, midair as the reality of my situation crystallized. In 1 week, I would be effectively homeless, and the house, if I won it, wouldn't be habitable right away. The auction was just 2 days away. Despite my outward confidence, doubt began to creep in. Was I making a catastrophic mistake? My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Mom told me what happened. I'm really worried about you. This isn't like you to be so selfish. Maybe we could talk? I'm sure we can find a compromise so you can still contribute something to the retreat. The manipulative phrasing wasn't lost on me, and I left it unanswered as I finished getting ready for work. Throughout the day, messages trickled in from various family members. Aunt Patricia suggested the name of her therapist. Uncle Richard offered to talk sense into me over golf on Saturday. Cousin Melanie, Mother's constant informant, asked pointed questions about my sudden interest in derelict properties. Only my cousin James sent a message that felt genuine. Whatever you decide, know that I've got your back. Mom and Aunt Elaine don't speak for all of us. That evening, I began the painful process of sorting my belongings, separating what I'd need from what could go into storage. The auction went ahead as scheduled, and with no competing bids, I became the owner of the Victorian house for exactly $900 plus fees. Mother's expression when I showed her the deed was a mixture of disbelief and disappointment that cut deeper than I expected. You've actually gone through with this insanity, she said, shaking her head. I honestly thought you'd come to your senses. The remaining days passed in a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Vanessa alternated between ignoring me completely and making tearful appeals about family loyalty. Mother oscillated between cold fury and theatrical sighs of disappointment. By the weekend, I had arranged for my essential belongings to be moved to the house, despite Tyler's repeated warnings that it wasn't yet fit for habitation. The utilities are connected, but there's no hot water yet, he cautioned as we unloaded my car. And the heating system, well, it's questionable at best. Are you sure you don't want to crash at my place until we get the basics sorted? But I declined his offer, driven by a stubborn need to prove, mostly to myself, that I could make this work. That first night alone in the empty house was a test of resolve I nearly failed. I lay on a camping mattress in what would eventually become my bedroom, battery-powered lanterns casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper, while water dripped somewhere in the distance. Curled in my sleeping bag, I finally let the tears come. They weren't just tears of fear or uncertainty. They came from a deeper wound. The realization that my family had assigned me so little worth they would discard me entirely for daring to chase my own dreams. As the temperatures in the drafty house dropped to uncomfortable lows, I questioned every decision that had led me here. Sleep came in fits, interrupted by the unfamiliar creaks and sighs of an old house, and the weight of my own doubts. The first morning in my new home brought unexpected comfort. I woke to sunlight streaming through the east-facing windows, filtering through decades of dust on the glass. Somehow it transformed the shabby room into something almost magical. In the warm light, I saw details I'd missed before. Intricate crown molding, the delicate patterns in the hardwood floors, and the perfect proportions of the soaring 10-foot ceilings. With Tyler's guidance, I developed a strategic renovation plan, one habitable zone to start, with a functional bathroom, a safe electrical system, and a weatherproof roof. My savings were nearly gone after paying for the essential professional work, leaving nothing for fancy finishes. That limitation became my unexpected education. Each evening after work, I turned to YouTube tutorials, learning how to strip wallpaper, repair plaster, refinish floors, and paint like a pro. The local hardware store, once intimidating with its endless shelves of possibilities, soon became familiar territory. The staff started greeting me by name, offering advice and sharing in the excitement of each small milestone. During my third week, a gentle knock at the door revealed an elderly woman holding a plate of homemade cookies. "I'm Irene Davenport." "From next door," she said warmly, eyes bright with curiosity. "I've been watching your progress and thought you might need a little sustenance." Irene, it turned out, had lived in the neighborhood for 60 years and remembered Margaret Winters, the home's last owner. Such a lovely woman, though she kept to herself in her later years. Irene reminisced as she helped me scrub years of grime from the kitchen windows. She would be pleased to see someone breathing life back into this old place through Irene. I began to connect with other neighbors, some skeptical at first, but slowly won over by my daily efforts. The neighborhood handyman lent me specialized tools and taught me how to use them. A retired carpenter offered to help rebuild the front porch in exchange for my help organizing his late wife's library. At Tyler's suggestion, I created an Instagram account to document the restoration process, partly to track my progress, partly to find others who shared my fascination with old houses. What began as occasional posts about small projects unexpectedly grew into a following. Strangers offered encouragement and advice, cheering me on as the house took shape. 6 weeks in, I received my first sponsorship offer from a company that specialized in period-appropriate hardware. They offered to supply authentic doorknobs and hinges in exchange for feature posts. Small victories, but ones that felt deeply affirming. Despite working full-time and pouring every evening and weekend into the house, I discovered reserves of energy I'd never known. Each small triumph, cleaning a chandelier to reveal its crystal beauty, restoring a piece of ornate trim, finishing the first fully functional bathroom, built confidence I hadn't felt in years. Mother's predicted check-in calls never came. The family silence was nearly complete, save for occasional updates from James. Through him, I learned that Vanessa's retreat planning was continuing, fueled by Mother's increasingly significant contributions and loans from other relatives. My absence from family gatherings was apparently explained away as a concerning phase I was going through. Though the estrangement stung, it also created space for new relationships. The DIY restoration community introduced me to people who valued creativity, resourcefulness, and authenticity, qualities that had never been currency in the foster household. For the first time in my life, I was forming connections based on genuine shared interests rather than obligation or proximity. As fall turned to winter, the house slowly began to feel like home. The new roof and repaired windows kept the weather out. The restored central heating, my last major investment, consuming the remainder of my savings, provided reliable warmth. The kitchen, though a patchwork of salvaged cabinets and secondhand appliances, was functional enough for simple meals. And each evening, as I pulled a chair up to the rickety kitchen table under the soft glow of a single salvaged light fixture, I felt a quiet sense of peace. I would sit in my gradually evolving living room, surrounded by tools and paint samples, and feel something I recognized as contentment, a quiet pride in creating something meaningful from what others had written off as worthless. 6 months into the renovation, disaster struck without warning. I woke at 3 in the morning to the sound of rushing water. Stumbling downstairs, I found the first-floor ceiling had partially collapsed, water gushing from a burst pipe in the upstairs bathroom. Frantically calling Tyler while trying to locate the main water shutoff, I watched in horror as water ruined the fresh plasterwork and newly refinished floors. The next few days brought grim news. Insurance would cover only a fraction of the damage because of the property's transitional renovation status. The repairs would cost thousands, money I didn't have, threatening to derail the entire project. As I sat amid the wreckage, calculating whether a personal loan could keep the dream alive without bankrupting me, there was an unexpected knock at the front door. My mother stood there, immaculate as always, taking in my disheveled appearance with a critical eye. James mentioned you've had some problems, she said by way of greeting. I thought I should see this situation for myself. Her inspection was methodical, noting my progress with grudging acknowledgement, but lingering on the unfinished areas and water damage with thinly veiled disapproval. You've certainly been working hard, she finally conceded, running a perfectly manicured finger along a freshly painted trim. Though I still believe this entire project was ill-conceived. We settled in the only fully furnished room, the small library I had prioritized as my sanctuary. Mother declined my offer of tea in a chipped mug and launched into her true purpose. Vanessa's retreat project has run into difficulties, she said. The investor who promised matching funds withdrew unexpectedly. The family contributions, including my significant portion, are now at risk. The familiar pressure was immediate, unspoken, but heavy in the air. I didn't come to ask for help, she continued, though her tone suggested otherwise. But it occurs to me that this property, despite its obvious challenges, might have appreciated somewhat with your improvements. A quick sale could be advantageous for both of us. The implication was clear. Sell my house to save Vanessa's failing project. I'm not selling, I said simply. Mother's composure slipped for a moment. After everything this family has done for you? Your sister is facing financial ruin, and you sit here in this monument to selfishness and refuse to help? Something unexpected happened then. Not the dramatic confrontation I'd imagined, but a calm clarity that settled over me like dust in a long-closed room. What exactly has this family done for me, Mother? I asked quietly. When have my dreams ever been supported the way Vanessa's have? When has my practical approach to life ever been valued instead of dismissed? This house isn't a monument to selfishness. It's the first place I've ever truly belonged, where my work and my vision actually matter. Mother's expression shifted between shock and indignation. We gave you everything growing up. We supported your education. You tolerated my choices, I interrupted, surprising us both. But you made it clear they disappointed you. You've spent my entire life waiting for me to become someone else. Someone more like Vanessa. Someone more like you. I'm done waiting for approval that's never going to come. The silence that followed felt weightless, like setting down a burden I had carried for decades. I think you should leave now, I said, standing to show her to the door. I have a ceiling to repair. After she left, I leaned against the closed door, bracing for tears or regret. But what I felt was a surprising lightness, the liberation of speaking the truth after years of careful silence. The water damage crisis was still very real, but somehow it seemed less overwhelming. That evening, my phone buzzed with unexpected messages from followers in the restoration community offering support after I shared my setback. A local plumbing company, intrigued by the project's history, offered discounted labor. Tyler arrived with 2 friends from his construction company, volunteering a Saturday to help with the repairs. Most surprising of all was a private message from Vanessa. I saw Mom after she visited you. She's furious, but I think she's also shocked that you stood up to her. For what it's worth, I'm jealous of what you're creating there. It's authentically yours in a way my retreat never was. It was always about Mom's vision, not mine. The message ended with a question. That took me aback. Would it be weird if I came to see your house sometime? Just me. No Mom, no drama. It wasn't immediate or complete reconciliation, but it was a beginning, the first sincere communication we'd shared in years. As I worked alongside my new community of supporters, repairing the damage and installing improved water systems, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I realized the crisis had revealed something crucial. I was no longer alone, no longer the invisible foster daughter waiting for validation. I had built not just a house, but a life, with its own foundation, structure, and purpose. 1 year after purchasing my so-called junk house for $900, I hosted an open house celebration to mark the substantial completion of the main floor renovation. The transformation stunned even those who had witnessed the progress incrementally. The once collapsing front porch now boasted lovingly restored Victorian details and inviting seating. Inside, the original hardwood floors gleamed beneath area rugs salvaged from estate sales, and the living room's focal point, a marble fireplace I'd uncovered beneath layers of drywall, stood as a testament to period-appropriate restoration. The kitchen, though still modest, combined salvaged cabinets I'd refinished in complementary colors with modern appliances and butcher block countertops, achieving a charm that expensive renovations often overlook. 2 weeks before the celebration, I received an unexpected phone call from a real estate appraiser. A member of the local historical society suggested I evaluate your property, she explained. They're considering featuring exemplary renovations in their annual tour. The resulting appraisal valued the house at just over $200,000, figure that validated my vision in terms even my mother might understand. Not long after, the Historical Society selected my house for their tour, and a regional home improvement magazine reached out about featuring the renovation in an upcoming issue. My restoration Instagram account had grown to 30,000 followers, leading to partnership opportunities that helped fund the remaining projects. Amid the celebration's warmth and congratulations, I noticed Vanessa standing somewhat hesitantly near the entrance. Our relationship had been rebuilding slowly through occasional texts and coffee meetups, each of us carefully navigating new boundaries. "This is incredible, Morgan," she said, taking in the details with genuine admiration. "You've created something really special here." For the first time in our adult lives, we had a conversation unmarked by competition or comparison, just two sisters sharing authentic thoughts and experiences. "The retreat didn't happen," she admitted as we sat in the garden I'd been reclaiming from years of neglect. "Honestly, I'm relieved. It was never really my passion, just something that seemed impressive enough to satisfy Mom's expectations." 2 months after the celebration, Mother finally requested a proper tour. Her visit was brief and guarded, but I caught a flicker of genuine surprise as she took in the transformation. "You've certainly proven your point," she said at last, running her hand across the restored banister. Though a traditional modern home would have been far less trouble. It wasn't an apology or full recognition, but from Elaine Foster, it was significant movement. The small family gathering I hosted that Christmas was tentative and sometimes awkward, but it marked a shift, from complete estrangement to cautious reconnection. As the house continued to evolve, so too did my understanding of its meaning in my life. What began as a practical solution to homeownership had become a journey of self-discovery. The skills I learned led me to offer weekend workshops for women interested in basic home renovation, building a community around shared learning and empowerment. Each class that filled with enthusiastic participants reinforced my core belief that both people and houses hold inherent value, even if that worth is invisible to those unwilling to look past surface imperfections. My so-called $900 sour investment had yielded returns far beyond financial appreciation. It had shown me my own resilience, creativity, and worth, independent of family validation. The crisis that pushed me out of my childhood home had ultimately guided me to where I truly belonged. Sometimes I told my workshop participants as we carefully restored an antique door together, the things others discard become our greatest treasures, not in spite of their flaws, but because working through those imperfections reveals what's truly valuable underneath. As my story has unfolded through this video, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where rejection or criticism ultimately led you to something better? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of transformation resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Thank you for joining me on this renovation journey. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful transformations begin when someone sees possibility where everyone else sees only problems.